Mahmoud Abbas says the US recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital would destroy the peace process. The EU warning of possible serious repercussions. Now, Trump has missed a deadline to sign a waiver which would postpone moving the US embassy to Jerusalem, but that could still happen in the coming days. Let's go to Washington now. Philip Crowther, our correspondent, joining me. Philip, when can we expect a decision from the White House?
It seems rather imminent because we now have both the Reuters and AFP news agencies quoting their sources as saying that US President Donald Trump this morning here, local time, called the Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas. Now, that's all that they are reporting. We don't know whether this is about the decision, whether the United States will or will not announce that Jerusalem, in their views, is the Israeli capital. But the fact that the US president would call the Palestinian leader indicates that a decision is upcoming. Now, we do expect a decision to happen this week. Why? Because those are the words of Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, and the man who's supposed to be responsible for the Middle East and any Middle East peace deals that this administration might come up with. He says that the president is still thinking about it. Now, you mentioned this waiver. It's a statutory waiver that the White House would sign every 6 months. If it is not signed, and it wasn't yesterday was the deadline for this to be signed, then the US embassy would automatically be moved to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv, where it is now. That waiver was not signed, or at least there wasn't an announcement made by the White House whether or not this waiver was signed. That could still happen. Here is the latest we have from the White House because, as I said, this news of a phone call between President Trump and Mahmoud Abbas has not yet been confirmed by the White House. They do, though, say that a decision by Donald Trump on the status of Jerusalem, as seen by the Trump administration, is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. That coming from one of the White House spokespeople yesterday.
And who will make the decision?
Well, it will be the US president. There's no other way around it. He says that he is the one who takes these decisions, and that is largely true. That we know from himself and from anybody who works with him. Add to that the fact that anybody who wants to lobby this administration on this decision on Jerusalem, well, lobbies the US president directly. One example, that phone call between the French president Emmanuel Macron and the US president Donald Trump yesterday, in which, according to the Élysée Palace in Paris, Macron did warn against this decision by the US president to potentially recognize Jerusalem as the Israeli capital and maybe also announce that the US embassy would be moved to Jerusalem. The White House, by the way, omitted that part from the phone call. There are other people who are important in this decision. The president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is definitely one of them. He is the one who is supposed to be communicating with allies and others in the Middle East about any Middle East peace process. He's the point man on this. And then other people who are important in this decision, well, they're those who voted for the US president, because it was a campaign promise, after all, from then candidate Donald Trump, that the US embassy would, under his presidency, be moved to Jerusalem. That's why there is a lot of pressure on this US president to make this type of a decision, because it was a campaign promise, and we know that he wants to keep those promises, or at the very least make it look like he is about to keep that kind of a promise.
Thank you, Philip. Philip Crowther in Washington.